Hi, second graders. So we're back on our informational writing for today. You just watched a video about a story called Birds that showed our comparing and contrasting that we're going to be working on in our writing workshop. So that one showed the similarities and the differences that birds have. So today, what we're going to do next is now we're going to be the authors. We've read a book from an author that shows comparing and contrasting of nonfiction text. Now we're going to brainstorm some ideas for comparing and contrasting of writing. So just a reminder that informational writing, it's a real information. It has facts. It uses text features. So we've been talking a lot about text features. And it also has different purposes. So again, the one that you did last week was descriptive to describe or explain. And the one we're doing today is to see how things are the same or different, also known as compare contrast. So we're really looking at, can we pick out similarities and can we pick out differences between two topics that we're going to be writing about? So maybe you've seen this type of it's called a Venn diagram before, and this is usually what we use to help us plan compare contrast writing because you put what's different about them on the outside circles, and you see that in the middle is what they have in common. So I'm showing you this plan before we brainstorm because it really you have to have both sets. You have to have the things that are true about just the one topic and then facts that are true about just the other topic. And then you have to know about things that are the same about both these things. So when you're brainstorming ideas of things that you could compare and contrast, make sure that they have things that are different and make sure that they have things that are the same. So I have brainstormed a whole list of things, and I'm hoping it's going to give you some ideas of what you could do for comparing and contrasting. So I know that kids really like have an opinion on if they like crayons more or markers more. So I was thinking that we could compare and contrast what makes a crayon, what makes markers, is the same about them. We use them both for coloring or decorating things. This one I know kids really have an opinion on. What about indoor recess versus outdoor recess? So, what's the same? Well, they're both recess times, right? They're both times that kids get to play with their friends. But when you're inside, you're going to do board games. You might get to do coloring. When you're outside, you get to play on the jungle gym. You get to run around. You get to play soccer. I thought, oh, with what we're doing right now in reading, we just finished doing some fictional stories, and now we're looking at nonfiction with Teddy Roosevelt. So, what's the differences between fiction and nonfiction? Well, nonfiction, it has to have facts. Fiction, you can make it up, right? But they are both stories that people can read and learn from. What about parents versus kids? Oh, I was thinking there's lots of ideas for you with parents versus kids, right? There's the age, so that could be some differences. What's the same? Well, they're both people, right? They're all in the same family, but maybe kids don't have as many responsibilities as parents do. In my house, we like to talk a lot about cats and dogs. We just got a puppy. So I was thinking, oh, I could write about the difference between dogs and cats and I don't know, we could be really silly and dogs go to the bathroom outside, cats have a litter box inside. They both walk on four legs. They both have a tail. They both can like to snuggle, maybe dogs more than cats. I thought, especially with the holidays coming up, what about Christmas versus Halloween? Okay, so I know a lot of kids get candy on both, so that could be something that's the same. But at Christmas time, you give presents and you think of others. At Halloween, you dress up in a costume and you go trick or treating door to door. At Christmas, you might go caroling and sing Christmas carols door to door. So that's different. I was born in Chicago, and Chicago is a big city if you've never been there. That's very different than Zealand, where I live now. So I could compare how these cities are so different. Maybe you've traveled to some different places that you could say about how they're the same or how they're different. So Zealand is small and Chicago is large. Chicago has a lot of people and very tall buildings. Zealand doesn't have as many people, and the buildings aren't as tall. There aren't skyscrapers here, but they both are a place where people live, right? So there's some similarities. Swimming versus skiing, I thought could be one that you might be interested in. So if you think about swimming, you need a pool, right? You need water. skiing, you're going to need snow and your skis and ski poles, but they're both exercise, they're both an activity, and both can be done outside, right? So there's lots. I thought, how about kindergarten versus second grade? We're second graders, and second grade is very different than kindergarten. So, what could we talk about? Well, what's the same about them? Well, they both, you're in school and you have a teacher, right? But in kindergarten, you're just learning how to read. Where in second grade, you're starting to read more difficult books. You're able to read some chapter books, even. This one I thought would be really special to what's happening right now in our life as we're more remote learning. We were in-person learning at the beginning of the year, where we got to be face to face and with our friends and with our teacher in the school. We're remote learning. Now you're at home, mom or dad or a grandparent's probably helping you learn. Maybe you're at daycare. You have to use your iPad a whole lot more, right? We use Seesaw even more than we did in person. So there's definitely some differences, but there's still some things the same. Your teacher is still your teacher, right? You're still checking in with her about your different activities that you're doing. You still have to do some learning, whether you're at home or in school. So then if I come over to this side, oh, mom and dad, I wonder if you can think of some similarity and differences between your mom and dad. I know my girls could definitely think of some things that are different. Like at our house, dad is better at playing outside in the snow than mom, or mom does more of the cooking at home than dad. I'm usually the one who reads the stories at night. So my girls might put for the mom side that mom reads the stories and dad plays outside in the snow. But in the middle, they would probably put that they both love, that we love our girls and that they're loved. A sister and brother, I grew up with brothers, so there's definitely differences between my brothers and myself and what we're interested in, what we like to do, maybe the sports that we played. But some similarities are we're in the same family, again, that we love each other. My brothers and I actually look kind of alike, so I might even put that. This one could be a big topic for some kids. What about Michigan versus Michigan State? I'm a family where my husband went to the University of Michigan, so we're big Michigan fans. But maybe you're a big Michigan State fan, and you could compare and contrast how they're the same and how they're different. Boys and girls, what about pancakes versus waffles? Maybe breakfast foods that you like. Or I was even thinking about the outside, like the desert versus the Arctic. We've got sand, we've got snow, hot, cold, but they're both places where animals live. So we could put some similarities. I don't know about you guys, but mom versus grandma at my house would be very different too. We could get lots of ideas. How about books versus TV? I'm kind of a big books person. So, what could I tell about books? Well, they're on paper, right? They're stories that you read with your eyes and you read the words, where TV is still stories a lot of times, but they're done with pictures, right? And so you could say that similarities are that they're both stories, but this is told more with pictures and this is told more with the written word. You could even say this is with talking words, right? And then we all know a lot about animals. So I just picked some animals, but you might have some schema, or another word for that is prior knowledge or information that you know about a lot of animals. Kids always know lots about animals. But I thought even like panda bears versus polar bears, or snakes versus alligators for the reptile family. Or maybe you want to do reptiles versus mammals, could be one. And some of my sports players, maybe football versus soccer. Those are sports that kind of have some similarities. They both use a ball, they require the team, but the differences are a football is very different than a soccer ball, and football is more contact of people than soccer is. What about basketball versus baseball? Ooh, I love cakes and cupcakes. Ooh, well, a cupcake's like an individual cake, right? And a cake you're going to share with lots of people. And then I know how much kids love video games. So the last one I was thinking about was video games versus board games. So board games like Monopoly or Sorry, video games, what you play on the TV. We don't have any video games at my house, so that one would be a hard one for me. But I feel like a lot of you know a lot of information about video games. But here's the thing, when you're brainstorming what you're going to choose to write about, it has to be something you know a lot about. When you are writing an informational writing, it has to be facts. None of it can be made up. And it has to really give us information so that we can learn something new. You have to be thinking that the reader doesn't know about what you're talking about. So you don't want to choose something you don't know a lot about. So I might know a lot about board games. I don't know a lot about video games, so I'm probably not going to pick that one. You're going to want to think of what do you know a lot about? So I'm going to put this into our seesaw activity so that you can refer back to it if you need it to help you come up with some ideas. So, boys and girls, what you're going to do today is after this video, you're going to go into many different options of places that you can write your topics down, and I'll go over that in a minute. And you're going to come up with 3 to 5 topic ideas that you could write about for a compare and contrast. This is just like what you did for descriptive. We want to do 3 to 5 so that you don't have too many to choose from, so it's not hard for you to narrow down your ideas. We want you to think about 3 to 5 things that you would feel comfortable that you have enough information about that you could write about. Now, you might be thinking, where am I going to write this? Well, there's lots of options of where you can write this. Okay. Some of you brought your writing journal home from school. So you could go right into the ideas tab. You could turn the page to the next one. You could write compare and contrast at the top, and you could put your ideas right in there. Some of you don't have your journal at home. That's okay. Then you just take a blank piece of paper and you put it on there for the compare and contrast ideas. Now, remember, I said we are going to try to think of 3 to 5 ideas of what I could write about. So I want to put that on my list of what are some ideas that I would feel that I know a lot of information about. And like I said, I don't know a lot about video games, so I'm not going to choose that one for me. But, and maybe you weren't born in Chicago. I said I was born in Chicago. If you weren't born in Chicago and don't have a lot of schema for that, you aren't going to want to choose that. You're going to want to choose what you know a lot about and that you can tell what is the same about your 2 topics and what is different about your 2 topics. So I have 2 brothers. So I'm going to put my brothers' names on there because they're very different, but also very the same. So the first one I'm going to write down is my brothers' names are Garth and Morgan. So I'm going to write them down. I know lots of things about them that's different. I know lots about them that's the same. So they could definitely be something that I choose to write about for my compare and contrast writing. I also just feel like with the holidays, I'm feeling very Christmassy. So I kind of want to write down a holiday one. So I think I'm going to write Christmas and Halloween. And maybe you even want to compare like some traditions that you do at Christmas time. It's kind of fun to think of Christmas ideas right now with the holidays upon us. But Christmas and Halloween, they're not that far apart. Or maybe Christmas and Thanksgiving would be one that you would want to write about. So I have Christmas and Halloween that I decided to put on there. I also would really like, because we're doing it right now, I think that remote learning and in person learning. I think that one really fits what's happening right now. So I definitely have a lot of schema about what it's like to learn remotely from home and what it's like to learn in person in school. So let's see, I have 3. Remember, I said 3 to 5. So I need a couple more. I think that I would also want to do Chicago versus Zealand. Again, that one's more me, but maybe you have different places that you visited that you could compare. My family really likes to go to Disney World, and then this summer we went to national parks. Well, those are very different places. So maybe you would want to compare places that you've been. So I could do a national park one. The Disney World would be another option. And I love animals. So I think I'm going to choose an animal one, but I'm going to compare dolphins to sharks. Dolphins are one of my favorite animals. Sharks, not so much, but I have a lot of schema about them. So I can definitely tell about what's the same. Well, they both swim in water. They both have, well, not all sharks have live birth, but they have their live births. The moms stay around, but then they're very different in how they treat their prey, how they communicate with one another. So I said 3 to 5 ideas, and now I have 3 to 5 ideas written down on my brainstorming list. This is going to help me for tomorrow. Once I've written my 3 to 5 ideas, kind of be thinking about tonight. What's the one you know the most about? What's the one that you could pick for tomorrow when it's time for us to plan out our writing? And even be starting to think about, well, what's the same about these two things? And what's different about these two things? You need to make sure that you have information about both. So, what you're going to do next, second graders, is you're going to go and make your own compare contrast ideas list. You can put it again in many different options. You can put it in your writer's workshop journal under the ideas tab, or you can just do it on a blank piece of paper. Doesn't matter. You're going to go to the next slide in the seesaw activity. You're going to snap a picture of your ideas list and you're going to upload it there for your teacher to be able to see. And then you're going to be able to go off and do your next writing activity. So I'm very excited to read what ideas you come up with. It'll be very fun to see and start thinking, what do you know a lot about? Remembering that comparing and contrasting is telling what's the same about two things and what's different about two things. Happy brainstorming.